From the former convent of the Good Shepherd overlooking Inwood Hill Park in New York City, welcome to Inwood Artworks On Air. It's where we meet musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes who make their home in what we affectionately call Upstate Manhattan. I'm your host, Aaron Sims, and today we welcome photographer and activist Cristobal Vivar. Cristobal Vivar was born in Mexico to an artistic family. His father is a painter, sculptor, and jewelry designer. His mother, a textile artist. His uncle created model buildings for architects, and his grandfather was passionate about photography when not working as a miner. After studying graphic design, Chris became interested in animation and photography, and graduated in working doing interactive websites and motion graphics for television. In 2001, he immigrated to New York and photographed the social movements born out of the post-9/11 turmoil. After becoming a father, he pursued photography as a career and worked for the Inwood newspaper Manhattan Times. His film projects were included in the first and most recent Inwood Film Festivals, and his photography was featured in Inwood Artworks' Focus on Photography Gallery exhibition. We're going to talk about his work behind the lens and so much more, but first, let me welcome you, Chris, to Inwood Artworks On Air. It's great seeing you.
Thank you for inviting me, Aaron.
You bet. I have a quote here from a writer named Gordana Jeljelcevic.
Yes.
She wrote, he, I don't know this person. She, I figured it was a she. But
yeah, she's a neighbor.
You never
she's
know.
Listen to this podcast,
I've never met
probably.
her, but when I meet people on paper for the first time, I just don't, I can't tell gender. Wrote the following, she wrote the following of your work. Chris catches the precise moments when people connect to each other, to their environments, to their own mysteries. A love of pattern and ritual, thrilling play of light, electric images that are potent and entirely alive. What is your response to that?
Oh, when I read that, I thought it was very nice. I don't know if I can fulfill all the ambitions that's in that phrase, but it sounded like everything that I aspire to do.
Mission accomplished. Okay, podcast's over, everybody. We're done. Well, it's nice to have that kind of effect, and people have affinity for your work. You crossed a lot of spectrums, and I want to mention you said your dad had a passion for photography.
My grandfather.
Your grandfather had a passion for photography. Did that influence your work in a specific way?
Well, I didn't meet him.
Okay.
He passed away before I was born. But my uncle, the model builder for architects, loved photography too. He passed it to my brother. It's like contagious.
Yeah.
And
let's see where it all came from.
And we actually did an amazing thing as a family. When I was like 12 years old, my dad sold a lot of paintings and decided, hey, let's go around the world, all of us. So we traveled for 5 months. We went to India, Nepal, London, upstate New York. That's how I fell in love with this area. And my mother made a wonderful family album, which is a tradition from her mother, my grandmother. They make these large albums, handmade. It's not what you would. They buy the paper, they make the holes, and put the screw through it, and then they placed the photos with the little corner stickers, but also all the little things that are sometimes even more important than the photos, like the hotel ticket, the newspaper cutout.
It's a scrapbook.
A scrapbook, yes. But they were really nice. My grandmother's albums are amazing, and they had an amazing life. They traveled a lot to Europe. My grandfather raised cattle. He actually developed a breed of cattle, and they had incredible adventures. They were sometimes very fancy and sometimes super raw out there, like trying to save remember that once they went during a hurricane in Veracruz to one of the ranches that they had to save a container with bull semen.
Where this is going, folks.
So I don't know what it looks like, but it's a tank of nitrogen with something else.
Inseminate the cows. Hey, you got to keep.
It's
livestock.
very valuable.
Hey, I would say livestock. It's a big business. You got to keep it going. You got to keep it growing.
So they went there during a hurricane, probably risking their lives, and they went to do that. And so the album was very nice, very interesting. And then my brother's photos that he took during that trip look amazing in that album. And I think I learned a lot from seeing that. It's like, hey, photos are quite important, and they kind of show the beauty or whatever happened during that moment. So I was always taking photos, of course, from my toy camera as a little kid, etc. But I became more interested later on. When I was studying graphic design, I was the photographer, right?
Yeah, sure, exactly.
While not knowing that was what I was gonna do mostly. I do graphic design sometimes a little bit of motion graphics, and now I'm doing more video. And I started when I was studying, and then I did this time-lapse video, which is just a series of photos, and you selected it for the first Inwood Film Festival.
8 a.m. to 8 p.m., right?
Yes, and that's one of my favorite things that I've made. Once you make something that's good, it's like independent. It's like
actually it's 8 p.m.
like somebody else made it, and you say, "Oh my God, that's really good."
It was good.
I love seeing that one. One day I would like to project it at a gallery, just in a loop in a closed room. It would be nice.
That would definitely work. Yeah, with that piece.
And so I started doing more videos, and then I participated again with another video. I forgot the name, which is about a group picking up garbage.
Yeah, it was like an environmental video, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It had a good name. I forgot. And then the latest one.
So you had this video about the park, and so obviously you have an affinity for our area. So you visited Upstate. How did you find your way to Inwood?
Long story or short story?
It was a short story. It's only a podcast, folks.
Well, I took a plane.
Well, okay, that's gonna be a long story then.
No, I'm a New Yorker. I've lived so many places. I get kicked out by high rents and.
Yeah. When you immigrated here in 2021, you didn't come. Sorry, 2001, you didn't come here, right? You were here somebody else.
I know. I've lived Chinatown, Prospect Park again.
In the park.
And then Bushwick, then Spanish Harlem, then Washington Heights, then here. And all those places have higher rents now.
Well, and so does here. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Right.
But it was, when you're downtown, you never come here. Well, of course, you might come to the cloisters, right?
Right.
I was at the cloisters with my family
Destination
in '85 here, for example. But a little bit more, no. And I once came for a Bulgarian music festival called Goldfest. I highly recommend it.
Up here? I never heard of it.
And they move around. Now they're in Prospect Park. I don't know if that's a permanent home.
Okay.
They're in February. It's like a really good thing to do in winter.
I see.
It's an amazing festival with many musicians. And it's a lot of fun. So it was here, in the Good Shepherd School.
Gotcha.
And I remember taking the subway for so long and finally getting out, and it was night, just looking like it is a strange place, passing by where I live now, right next to the door. And then finally going in, and it just felt very strange. Of course, it was night. if it had been day, I would have been like, oh, this is very nice. But I never thought I would live here.
And how long have you been here now?
8 years? I don't know.
8?
Yeah.
Really? Only 8? It seemed like longer for some reason.
Maybe. I have no idea.
It's best to think about sometimes. Well, as I mentioned earlier, your personal photography is focused on political and social issues, most of it focused on immigrant rights. If I recall, at our Focus on Photography show, we printed one image 13 feet high of a DACA activist. Another image showed a woman that was welcomed into a local church to protect her from ICE. As an immigrant yourself to the U.S., do you feel your background provides you with this insight to their experience to capture images that provoke both empathy and outrage with your subject struggle?
Well, I was an undocumented immigrant.
Yeah.
So it was very close. It was very, very close. And the demonstrations I go to are things that are close to me, of course, like climate change or immigrant rights in this case. And so I feel bad about having a camera.
Yeah.
It's like, where's my sign? I don't even know how to make a sign. I'm like, 2 hands? No, I need them. So I always feel guilty that I feel like I'm not participating. But a funny anecdote, when Reverend Billy and the Church of Stop Shopping Corps came to Inwood to sing. They're amazing, by the way, just incredible, and a lot of fun. And they were here to celebrate the victory of the activists against the Inwood rezoning. And they, at one moment, they asked for all the activists to go up, and I was pulled in with them, and I was like, no, I just made the movie.
It's true. It's true.
It's just a movie.
It's true. It's true. But I understand, though. It's like, you just want to be yourself, and then, but your camera allows you to, add insight from your experience and perhaps find that kind of link, that intimacy, so to speak, with other people's experiences at times.
That's what it should be, yes. I think I started reading Susan Sontag's book about photography, and I was really depressed.
She's pretty good.
No, but she says that, I know, like, the thing that I remember most is that we were just voyeurs looking at. It's a very detached thing. It's just like you go and you observe. And yes, there is risk of that. But it shows when you're like really involved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It definitely comes out through your work. That's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So let's turn our focus on film, but it also still links to photography because the film we're going to talk about, Udonisville, was a series of photos in many ways. So it was the last film you made, which was featured at this past Inwood Film Festival. It is about the last week of struggle to stop the Inwood rezoning. Activists argued that the rezoning would start rampant development in our beloved neighborhood. That would go against the character of the community and increase gentrification, reducing the Dominican community that makes this part of this Manhattan so special in many ways. What prompted you to take action to make this film? This is before this is pre overturning the rezoning. This is like there was like 3 different stages of it, and this was, I believe, the first stage, right?
There was so much drama on that. Yeah. It all started with like the Sherman. I don't know what its name is, but there's in front of the Fort Tryon Park. There's a former building. It's no longer there because
the Packard building was, I think it was.
The Packard building is the name?
The Packard building. I thought it was called the Packard building. I could be wrong. Sherman Plaza, I think they were going to call it Sherman Plaza, but I think it was an old Packard dealership, a car dealership / garage that was obviously defunct.
Yes, and they wanted to make a huge building there,
Yeah.
and
Started there.
and the work of the activists paid off.
Yeah.
At the very last moment, like the council member gave an hour-long speech. Well, that's what it felt like, maybe half an hour.
And all
And we were all like,
how long is it gonna
"What's
last?
going to happen?
Yeah.
What is he saying?" It's just like
Get to the end
went
already.
around and around and around.
Tell us.
It's like he's. We were all like, "Yeah, he's going to improve the construction of this building, which would be the Trojan horse for more development." And at the very last moment, I say, "And because of that, I will not vote for this." Oh, everybody was ecstatic. And then there was the Inwood Library, which is now a very tall building. It was a beautiful Art Deco building that everybody loved. And they are finishing a new building that the city gave for free to the developer in exchange of a library in that space and affordable housing. And we're all for affordable housing, but it's a very abstract term, and sometimes it's not applied well. Like today, I asked some of the activists for more information about this. They couldn't tell me how much it's going to cost. Nobody knows yet how much these apartments are going to cost. Sometimes it's very affordable, but often it's higher than the regular rent, and it's difficult to apply for. Sorry, I lost my train of thought a little bit there.
But you're setting the stage for your film that you made, Udonisville.
Oh yes,
like that. You're laying the foundation for why.
Oh
you
yes,
made the
because
film.
so there was a lot of suspense and drama, and I wish I was a better storyteller, because I think this should be done with actors. Because it was just full of suspense and surprises.
It was a long process over 2 years, and so that then the rezoning was overturned, where they said we want actually two. It's going to. They stopped it, and they said they were coming up to celebrate the rezoning, but then unfortunately
it was appealed.
It was appealed, and the appeal was granted to the developers in the city to the EDC, yes. I guess. You put the people's names in there you're supposed to put in there. The rezoning is occurring. We're living through it now. And so buildings are, there's certain parts of the neighborhood now that are rezoned for specific height allowments, which are higher than 6 stories or 5 stories, whichever it was before. Yeah, and so a lot of the industrial section of the city, of the neighborhood, will be raised, leveled and raised, to put up new buildings, new affordable housing we'll see, and perhaps an immigrant research and cultural center as well.
That was sold like it was like a big deal.
Including
put us in a museum, please.
Yes, and a new library. Well, the weird thing was, to me, was like, I just saying out loud, is that grateful for all these things, of course, but you had the library. They pitched the library with a cultural arts center inside of it, or a little cultural room. Then you pitched a cultural arts center with a library inside of it. And I was like, why don't you just make one library and make one full building the cultural arts center? But I don't know. I mean, call me crazy, just living here.
Yeah, but, and as far as I know, that the money that comes from that is independent from the rezoning. It's pretty crazy. So
the neighborhood's about to go through a lot of different changes, and your film was taken with a whole bunch of photography. Told that story.
Yes. Well, I the newspaper sent me to photograph several of the actions that were happening before that week was over, and it was just. Well, at one moment, I remember I took out my audio recorder, my phone, because I was like, oh, this should be film. But I refused to stop taking photos, because when I take photos and video, I miss opportunities on both ends. But I fortunately did some audio, and that's the base on one of the sections. And I don't remember exactly when I decided to make a film, but it was just like it's I hate to say it's an excellent story. What I saw is a lot more than what I tell in that very short movie. But well, I hope that it gets people interested in on what happened, and activists are the unsung heroes, right? If they win, sometimes they get recognized. If they lose, it's
Yeah.
everybody will forget them. But
Well,
they did give a fight. They did it for 3 years.
yeah.
And it was exhausting.
And I think that's really the story here, to be honest with you. And thanks for getting to it. Is that it's a story of a fight, of a neighborhood fight for what people in the neighborhood want. It's from the activist perspective versus a political perspective, something outside of the neighborhood being enforced on top of the neighborhood. And so you saw that struggle, winning and losing throughout. And I think that was the beauty of your film in many ways. Very, very, very journalistic in a way, and just stating the facts without tampering one way or another, or saying this group is right, this group is wrong. Even though you may side with the activists personally speaking, I thought the film was very true in the way of saying this is the story, like this is, if you connect the dots, this is the story of the facts that leads to this, of how things actually occurred. And thank God you did record some of that audio, because you have that there, so it speaks as a testament to some of those scenes, which is, some of those images and those scenes that you put together.
Yeah, sometimes I think I should extend it.
Well, if there's a director's cut, you want to add more to it, we'll be happy to see it sometime. How have people responded to the film? What's your feedback?
Unfortunately, COVID seems to get me. The first time that it was selected for the Inwood Film Festival, I remember you called me. I was about to enter the film theater to watch Parasite. And you called me and you gave me the great news that it was selected. I was very happy. A few days later, or it was
Weeks later, actually.
Weeks later, it was postponed.
We had our own
because there was a
Parasite
pandemic
going on called COVID. Yeah.
And then recently you told me, hey, we're showing it this time. After what, 2-3 years?
It was 2 years, yeah.
And then for the premiere, I had COVID myself. The first time I got it.
The great irony.
And I'm very careful. I wear a mask everywhere except here.
Well, we're in close quarters here, and everyone's been tested and vaccinated here. It's unfortunate, but I can tell you, being in the room, it was well received.
So you can tell me more about what happened. Tell me.
I'll tell you. Well, people watched it and they cheered, and you know what's really great? I have to say, people forget. Rezoning is not top of mind anymore because the battle's over. There'll be buildings coming up, and the affordable housing question will keep looming, I think. But as far as like the fight, that fight is done. But I think it's important that you documented aspects and facts that people forget of how the why things happened in certain ways, and you had, and then the what happened because of the why. Those are two questions that I think people forget. And when people talked about, for instance, the Performing Arts Center and things like that, and the library, or the sit-in at the office, those were interesting topics that people, that's what happened. Okay, that makes sense. That was a part of that. So it's like people understanding the pennies dropping, so to speak, and like light bulbs going off in their heads of understanding why. So I think it was a great thing to remind people, because we had been pausing for 2 years in many ways because of COVID, that the fruits of what you guys documented back then are coming to fruition now, as far as like that library is going up now. When you made the movie, the library was there. It wasn't destroyed yet. And now we have this, as example, this big library, 12, however many stories tall it is, looming, and we're all kind of wondering, what's going to happen. And this is, it's like a time capsule in a way, going back and saying 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we made this movie. This is what we were, you know, if you could see in the future, this is the future. You know what I mean? This is the future of that time. So watching that movie 2 years ago was very interesting. I think
it's like Back to the Future.
It was, yeah. It was fortuitous in some ways. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very important for people to know what's going on, and of course, not everybody's an activist or will dedicate so much time because. These people did a huge effort, very organized, lots of meetings, very stressful, disheartening at times.
Yeah.
And at this point, I don't know if, obviously, I don't think anything can be done, but that question of affordability, oh my God, it's like, how can we be manipulated so easily with that? It's not determined what it is. So for me, affordable is something. For somebody that makes more or less, it's something else. Everybody just puts a price tag on their head of what it is. Oh, it's affordable. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And the reason that it doesn't work well is because the map that determines what is affordable is not based on zip codes. It's based on maps created by the federal government. And we have the fortune to be in a map that includes Westchester.
Yeah.
So Westchester is quite wealthy, and that brings up what affordable is going to be for us.
Right.
However, I've seen other buildings that are affordable, like $300, $500. A lot of homeless people will be able to live in those places, and people that don't have the means. But affordable in Brooklyn, it's like $3,000 in some places.
Sure.
Like, no, that's not affordable for almost anybody.
Well, it's a socio-economical question that needs to be addressed more than anything else. About and with inflation and everything now too, there's a lot of talk. But Upper West Side was the greatest example lately with the whole, they used a hotel to house homeless people in the Upper West Side, and it's funny, like a lot of people who are consider themselves very liberal are like, yes, we want to love the homeless. We love everybody. We stand up for the little guy. And then when they put him in the hotel next door and they see people who are not of means, having people who are down on their luck, living next door, walking on the sidewalk next to them, wasn't so well received. It was a little hard pill for people to swallow. And it has nothing to do with the people themselves. It's to do with they can't afford more than X because of whatever their deal in life has been. So yeah, it takes a lot of understanding, a lot of educating, and it'd be interesting to see how the neighborhoods will be rezoned and do the rezoning. They'll benefit from social projects. They're just actually releasing a 988 number. I think I heard for social and mental benefits. Okay, how you dial 911? There's now a 988 that you can dial for help for suicide prevention and mental health issues. Mental, coming out of the pandemic. Well, we're still in the pandemic very much, folks. We know this, but hopefully we're coming out of it a little bit at a time, clawing our way through it. There's a lot of people who are going to be very down their luck. We need to take care of them. So just curious if that's a project, or do you have other projects, activist projects or community Inwood projects that you're embarking on next?
I'm not. Right now I'm quite busy with work, just regular work. I think it's going to be a while before I start something new, but I will go out and photograph the fireworks, for example, and that's something I do pretty often.
That's the Dyckman fireworks, folks, here in Inwood, which is its own event in itself.
Yes. It gets pretty wild out there, and I like that.
little taste of unbridled, the Wild West, a little untamed out there.
Yeah, you never know if the firework will, for some reason, decide to fly towards you, right?
You get a great shot, but you also might lose an eye, huh?
Yes. Wear the camera in front of your face for sure.
Exactly. What else can I ask you?
Well, I actually did another project that I love, which was kind of like speaking about mental health, right?
Yeah.
So the pandemic was very tough on everybody, and we're so lucky to live here, and just going to the park was such a relief, right? And I started paddle boarding, which is like a surfboard that you stand on, and with a long paddle you move.
Mm-hmm.
So I discovered the water around the area, and it turns out we live in a even bigger paradise than I thought.
We are on an island.
Yes. And the water is clean, despite what some people will say. The canal is a little bit dirtier, but the Hudson is just beautiful. And I started... my son was very interested in the divers that jump from Sea Rock.
Sure.
And I took him there once on the stand-up board. And then I thought, oh, this is a nice view, and an important view because it's the north tip of Manhattan, the place where Manhattan was bought. And you usually think of New York as a lot of buildings, but this is water and nature. And I did these panoramas, one for each season. I would go back sometimes 2-3 times because I wouldn't get the right light or conditions. And that's something that I really enjoy doing. Those photos are very special for me. And it was an amazing adventure, actually. In winter, I climbed up to Sea Rock. I wouldn't go to the very top. It's a little bit lower. And in the last photo I took, I asked a diver to jump. So unfortunately, you don't see the drama of a 50-foot fall into the water or dive into the water. But for those that know what's behind that, it's like, oh shoot, he's jumping into the water, which is really far away. Right?
Which many kids have died doing, by the way, over the years.
I actually saved somebody with a friend. We were paddle boarding, and we were hearing these sounds as we were coming in from the Hudson. And then all of a sudden, we saw somebody by Sea Rock. It's like, oops. We paddled as fast as we could, and we got him out.
Wow, great for you.
It's
the current's tough over there.
I think people just freak out about the current.
Yeah,
it's like the subway. If you get into the subway, get off on the next station. Don't try to run back to where you were.
Yeah. Go with don't fight the current.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he was fighting the current and was exhausted.
Sure.
And he was asking for help, and it's very difficult to see somebody that's in the water.
Yeah.
And there were boats passing by, making waves for him, making it really hard.
Yeah, the wakes are tough there too. It's not. It's just a very narrow channel, considering.
Yeah, I think with more. Well, of course, the city's not going to put up signs saying, "Hey, if you take this, if the current
if you
takes
think about
you,
breaking the law, don't do that, or you'll die."
Safety tips in case you do this.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a great project to work on around the Sea Rock and those panoramas. We're looking forward to. We'll put them. We'll put them on the video version of the podcast.
Great.
And so we'll share them with.
Yeah. Well, one day I would like to print them big. Really big.
It sounds like a good gallery show.
And not in photocopy paper like I did with the 13-foot photo of the DACA activist. They will have to be printed in a real printer.
Yeah.
And because the files are huge,
Sure.
they're taken with a pretty high resolution camera, and it's a lot of photos.
Yeah.
30 photos. So
wow, that's amazing.
they can be printed really big.
This is like a great show we should do sometime once we get our gallery space back.
Okay.
If we get a gallery space
Please.
back with this Well, how about some rezoning for some art space? How about that, folks?
Well, maybe we'll
Wouldn't
get
that
at
be
the
nice?
Immigrant Museum.
Yeah,
What was
the
it?
museum,
Yes.
cultural arts center.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you're an immigrant. You qualify.
I did,
You should
yes.
you should knock on their door saying, "Hey, how about me?" Well, Chris, as always, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Before we say goodbye, where can we go to find more about your current and forthcoming projects? Where's your website?
My website is my name, cristobalvivar.com. And I also have another website for my commercial photography, Vivar Photo, like my last name. And you can also find me in Instagram for Vivar Photo. Send me a message if you want to see more photos because I haven't posted lately.
Well, that's why I have a website. Put
yes.
your stuff up there. Well, listeners, you can find those links in the description of this episode. Thank you so much, Cristobal. It's great seeing you, my
Yes.
friend.
Well, thank you so much, Aaron. Yes.
You bet. You bet. This is Inwood Artworks On Air, special artist spotlight edition. It's where we meet the musicians, filmmakers, writers, theater makers, and artists of all stripes that make their home here in Upper Manhattan. If you have a moment, please show us some love right now by rating and reviewing this podcast on Apple Podcast. It really helps. Many thanks to Church of Good Shepherd here in Inwood NYC for hosting us, and to HideSites.com for local uptown promotional support. You can support On Air and all of our programming by making a tax-free donation at inwoodartworks.nyc/donate. Be sure to follow us on social media at Inwood Artworks to keep up all that we do, which includes the Inwood Film Festival, Filmworks Al Fresco, pop-up art galleries, live performances, and so much more. Inwood Artworks On Air is proud to be supported in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council. From the top of Manhattan and the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Aaron Sims for Inwood Artworks On Air.